All right, we are going to go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Thank you again to everybody for joining. I hope you are having a great Thursday and that you had an informative session in the main room. My name is Julieta Rodrigo, and I am a program manager at the Clio Institute. And I'm so glad to introduce to you today Sam Grant. He's the executive director for an organization called 350.org from Minnesota. So Sam, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Julieta, and thank you all for coming. I am Sam Grant, as Julieta said, and I am leading an organization in Minnesota, so one of the affiliates of 350.org. It's MN 350, and we are working at the intersection of racial justice and climate justice. And because of my background in agroecology and sustainable development, I have really nudged the organization to innovate around how we use agroecology as a resource for addressing climate change. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. And Sam has asked me to put together a poll so that you all can answer that for him and provide him some insight as to who is on the line today. I'm going to launch this poll in just a few moments. You're going to see a pop-up on your screen. If you could take a moment to answer those two questions, and then we will share the results with Sam. All right, about half of you have voted so far. I'll give you just a few seconds more. All right, we'll be closing it in just a few moments. All right, I am going to end the poll, and it looks like, how conscious are you of your relationship between diet and climate change? 50% of you said you're working on it, and 50% of you say you've got it. Regarding how much of a difference can food make in addressing climate change, 8% of you said some difference, and 92% of you said they think they make a lot of difference in addressing climate change through their food choices. So I do think that clarifies a lot of what we're going to be discussing today. In just a moment, Sam is going to share his screen, guide us through a presentation, and you can use the Q&A function to ask any questions. Sam, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Julieta, and thank you all for being here. I am going to dive into this pretty quickly, and it will be kind of a lightning round presentation because I actually am, booked right at the on the hour for an international hackathon I'm involved in around how we do urban development differently. So as I said, I'm Sam with MN 350, and I'm committed to urban agriculture as a critical resource for addressing the climate crisis in the 21st century. As I think about the contributions of urban agriculture to climate change, and I'm specifically thinking about climate change from the lens of climate justice, urban agriculture can help us improve access to healthy local food. It can help us improve diets and health of urban populations. It can reduce hunger and food insecurity, and also reduce obesity and diabetes. It can increase environmental quality by reducing water pollution, heat island effects, and air and soil pollution, while also increasing the beauty and community engagement in nature. And it can increase incomes, exercise joy, and a sense of community in urban spaces. So with all these benefits of urban agriculture, we'd be crazy not to do it, right? Well, there's a lot of impediments to doing more urban agriculture. So we have to sort of think about, how do we move our cities towards becoming ecological cities? So the main point I'll make is that cities are primarily committed to economic growth, and they see a disconnect between economic growth and ecological soundness and ecological justice. And the work of us in spaces like this with the Clio Institute is to say, we're not satisfied with that norm, and we're going to transform that norm into this new norm. If certain things are true, agriculture can play more of a role. Number one, we need cities and counties to partner with and follow the lead of communities. That's not currently their orientation. So that's part of the organizing work, is to get our cities to be more bottom up and truly democratic in the way that they make decisions. We need our communities to steadily build local agroecological knowledge and capacity. And when I started my agroecology project in North Minneapolis, the first thing I had to do, because I am not personally a farmer, farming is 2 generations back in my personal family system, I needed to find people in the community who actually already knew how to farm because they had been actively doing it. And luckily, it didn't take us that long to find some people who had grown up in farming families and were ready to sort of be the ambassadors and the key educators in agroecological knowledge production within the community. We have to design and organize urban agriculture for a quadruple bottom line, which means 4 objectives: ecological health, human health, public engagement, and economic benefit. Too often we're encouraged to trade off and prioritize one over the other. I think when we don't do 4 simultaneously, we're missing the power of urban agriculture. The organizing has to be intercultural and intergenerational and in all geographies. I think it's really important to get young people directly involved in food production as well as the elders, so that that knowledge from earlier generations is resonant with what's happening in urban agriculture now. And intercultural for me means that we're not doing agriculture as monolithic, monocropping agriculture, and we're incorporating multiple knowledges about our relationship with land, our relationship with food, our relationship with medicine, our relationship with each other in the way that we do our organizing. And finally, the urban agriculture objectives of most impacted climate justice communities must be centered in the design and development of urban agriculture. And this is another thing that is not easy for cities to do. I've been really working diligently in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis and St. Paul to get these 2 cities to do that. And they're in different places with their capacity. So I'll tell a story at the end about my new approach to trying to lead this organizing. So there's 4 legs in agroecology. And at the bottom is indigenous wisdom. So it's really important to pay attention to the wisdom of indigenous people, the people of Turtle Island, the original people of this land, to make sure that they're included. And as you think about land relationships and land justice, you're also thinking about treaty rights. And that's something we really center in our work. When we think about scientific knowledge, we're not just thinking about conventional science, but we're thinking about agroecological knowledge that lives within cultural communities and braiding conventional science with that knowledge to build agroecological scientific knowledge. A lot of observation of particular landscapes. How are people using those landscapes? Who lives close to that landscape? Is there water access on that landscape? What's the soil on that landscape? How does sun move across that landscape? How do animals move across that landscape? How much social energy is there that might be available to actually work on that particular piece of land? Are there any particular concerns or issues, like it's a major traffic, corridor, it's surrounded by a pocket where there is a lot of, community violence happening, and it might not be safe for, elders or young people to be in that particular space. So you have to sort of think about those things as you think about which spaces we use. And then finally, as we do agroecology, we have to recognize that our approach to urban agriculture is about healing our relationships with the earth, with each other, and with the future we hope to co-create with each other. So here's pictures from a couple of urban agriculture sites that I'm working on. These are, on the left is 2 good friends of mine. Michael Cheney, holding the hoe or the shovel, is the founder of Project Sweetie Pie, which personally has worked on about 80 different community farming sites in North Minneapolis. And next to him is Collie Graddick, who his family has been involved in the Federation of Southern Cooperatives since the Federation started in 1968. And he is actually working with me now to create a Federation of Northern Cooperatives to bring BIPOC growers together to build collective power around how we share our lives on the land. And he's also offered a lot of leadership on co-ops for agroecology. On the right is a garden site that we set up at my daughter's school back when we lived in Oakland, California, and we're now back in the Twin Cities area. But this is a garden that we set up as a teaching garden for the children in her classroom. So as we imagine futures of food, on the left side of this, vision is abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables in urban environments that are impacted by, because of redlining and economic apartheid, They don't have access to fresh local food. So bringing more fresh local food in is easiest if you create an urban agriculture strategy and you have people from within that community growing food. And then on the right is a picture of a child very happy to have done local urban harvesting of fresh fruits and vegetables that are growing, and just, you know, showing a picture of that to her mom and dad, say, see what I got, you know, right here in my neighborhood. So this is exciting, it's enriching, it's nourishing, it's multi-generational, it's good for the earth, it's good for our bodies and spirits, and it moves us towards the future that we need as human beings. So here's my dream, that we restore and increase local ecological knowledge, that our neighborhoods and cities reimagine and redevelop themselves as continuously productive urban landscapes, which means every place you could grow food or medicine or wildflowers, you do it. You make your city beautiful, you purify the air, and people feel more delight when they're walking down the street or walking through the park because it's aesthetically pleasing. The smells are different. The energy is also different because we're bringing light living energy back alive in our urban landscapes. Communities organize to co-facilitate community health and well-being at the same time. So for me, given my cultural orientation, wealth is healthy relationships and having people around you who love you and people around you who you love, and creating a healthy future with each other. That's more important than having money or other assets, because we live our lives together. And so designing urban agriculture in a way that it restores community and helps people foster common wellness is a really important objective that we can win with urban agriculture. And finally, how we go about doing this makes neighborhoods and cities carbon sinks, not carbon sources. So this is like getting down to the scientific nitty gritty. Agriculture is a carbon source right now, but agriculture can be a carbon sink. And there's a lot of opportunity we have in urban areas to facilitate that. One of the innovations I'm partnering in now is around this idea of the Agrarian Commons. Now, obviously, agrarian means rural, but when we think about the Agrarian Commons, we're actually thinking about it more holistically and pan-geographically, and it includes urban areas. So in the state of Minnesota, we have 110,000 white farmers, and there's only 1,300 farmers of color. The farmers of color have almost no land control. And so in order to solve that land control issue, we decided to organize a land justice strategy. So just a couple of days ago, I had a meeting with 30 BIPOC farmers who are all part of farming networks in their cultural communities. And we're dreaming up a strategy to get more farmers of color onto the land more quickly, with more land and with more technical and financial support, to grow the future of farming in Minnesota, whether people are in an urban area or in a city. So you just think about this quote from Malcolm X in 1963. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of freedom, justice, and equality. We have designed a world in which too many people are starved for land access. And if we starve people of land access, we're also starving people of democracy, and we're starving people of the opportunity to create a mutually thriving future. So land, in many ways, is everything, in the same way that water is everything. So the Agrarian Commons is a model that we're partnering with the Agrarian Trust, which is a state national organization. We're striving to create an Agrarian Commons network of 11 farms working together in each of the organizing regions of Minnesota, including in the core metro area. And in our strategy, we're specifically designing this in a way that will reduce wealth disparities, increase farm viability, and end the marginalization of people to access to well-being and food and community. Local Agrarian Commons hold farm and ranch land in trust, cut out speculative interests, and make it more possible for people to stay on the land long term. So right now we're navigating and negotiating with each farmer who comes into our system how to design the deal so that it works best for their family and the generations of their family to come. I'm going to skip past these principles in the interest of time. And so anybody who wants to, give Julieta their information, she can send this slide deck to anybody because I've shared it with her. So at the end of the day, what I'm hoping will happen is that we'll be countering green gentrification in urban areas by decommodifying the land to the extent we can, decommodifying health, and decommodifying our relations. Obviously, it's up to us how we choose to relate to each other. We can relate to each other as competitive individuals, or we can relate to each other as human beings who share a community and are committed to the well-being of everybody in that community. If we're committed to the well-being of everybody in that community, and we get land out of the speculative market and put it under community ownership and control, we can then work together to decommodify health, which means we can grow medicine and grow healthy food. One of the best things we can do to reduce diabetes, obesity, and reduce hunger and malnutrition is to make food more fundamentally available democratically within our communities. So I've done a lot of things through my organizing to try and facilitate this work. And I've done this work in the United States and also in the Caribbean and in Africa and in South America. I've trained more than 100 people in permaculture design, supported dozens of urban agriculture sites in getting developed, led a urban agriculture coalition, supervised a lot of youth getting into food production, and led these sustainable food labs to help people dream together about the future we want to create in urban food systems. And right now, I just this Monday launched an organizing project to reach all 1,300 BIPOC farmers in the state of Minnesota and help us all dream together and co-create conditions for our futures collectively on the land in Minnesota, whether urban or rural. And I'm currently working on creating a cooperative of farmers and producers and increasing market access for us in terms of being able to sell the things we grow on our food, and then farmer to farmer collaborations to build agroecological, economic, and cultural knowledge with each other. So that's my very quick summary of the stuff that I'm up to in my work. Are there any quick questions people have before I jump into my other meeting? How viable are indoor community gardens in spaces that lack adequate land? Great question. My answer is they're really viable. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities. One thing we're working on doing in our local urban environment right now is, because we're in a cold climate, you're in Miami, it's really nice there. Well, maybe some of you are from all over the country, but where we are, we have 4 or 6 months of the year where the weather is terrible. So we're looking at winter greenhouse operations. And we've got a model where a family could take their garage and turn it into a greenhouse and grow food abundantly, but then also putting up some indoor growing structures, and then, you know, using aquaponics as another opportunity to get more protein into families. So I want to thank you for your time. I apologize for needing to run. So I'm going to pass the mic back to Julieta.
Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing your great knowledge. It's been great to have you on. And remember, if anybody would like the slides, we do have access to those slides and can share those with you. Now, as Sam exits, please stay on the line. I do have 2 pieces of information to share with you before you go. But thank you again so much for joining, Sam, and we will see you soon.
So before I go, Emma asked a question. We are starting a community garden in West Tampa, and what are the ways to uplift our fundraising? We will definitely have a water bill. So the easiest thing to do, Emma, is get the people who are part of your system to share that cost together. So that's the ideal strategy, is the people who want to grow food there. They take that responsibility to make sure that you've got the water, you got the seeds, you got the implements. But if you can't do that, you need to push your city of Tampa to develop an urban agriculture policy framework, and then put more money at the resources of communities. And if you want to follow up with me, Julieta's got my information. I'm happy to be in dialogue with any of you as you do this work. Many blessings.
Thank you so much, Sam. Have a great afternoon. And for those of you still on the line, I am going to share my screen in just a moment. Just again, 2 short pieces of information. We do ask you to please complete a survey. We're going to be giving 3 lucky winners a zero waste gift box, which has a $25 gift card from Earth Hero as well. I'll be launching that survey in just a moment. So if you can fill that out and give us your insight, we really benefit from it. And as a reminder, tomorrow our keynote speaker is world-renowned scientist Dr. Catherine Hayhoe. We start probably at 10 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning. We do hope that you can join us in that session tomorrow. So I'm going to launch the poll. Please take your time and answer those quick questions. And once you are done with the polling, feel free to disconnect. I'll stay on the line if any of you have individual questions for me. Thank you again for joining.